Imagine this. What if one man could single-handedly seize control of America's entire economy, taxing trillions, slashing programs, and manipulating interest rates like a puppet master? Tonight, we're diving into a bombshell legal battle that could hand President Donald Trump exactly that power. Buckle up, because the Supreme Court might just say yes. Good evening, and welcome to Libo News. I'm your host, and today we're unpacking a trio of explosive cases that could redefine the balance of power in Washington. President Trump is pushing the boundaries like never before, asking the nation's highest court to grant him unprecedented authority over fiscal and monetary policy. If he wins, we're talking near total control. No Congress, no checks, just executive decree. But why now? And what does it mean for you watching at home? Let's break it down step by step, because this isn't just legalese, it's the future of your wallet, your job, and America's economic stability. First, let's set the stage. Trump's second term has been defined by bold moves on trade, spending, and the Federal Reserve. But these aren't ordinary policies, they're challenges to the Constitution itself. We're looking at three key cases, two already on the Supreme Court's docket for November, and a third that could hit their desk as early as tomorrow. At stake, trillions in taxes, billions in unspent funds, and the independence of the institution that steers our economy through storms. Critics call it a power grab. Supporters say it's essential leadership in chaotic times. Either way, the justices, many appointed by Trump or his allies, hold the fate of it all. Stick with me here, because in the next few minutes, we'll zoom in on the tariffs case that's already rattling global markets. But before we do, ask yourself, in a nation built on separation of powers, how far can one branch stretch before it snaps? All right, let's start with the tariffs, the first pillar of Trump's economic empire claim. Picture this. Import taxes so massive, they could rake in up to $4 trillion over the next decade, according to the president's own lawyers. That's money to slash deficits, fund priorities, or reshape industries overnight. But here's the rub. At least 10 federal judges have already ruled that Trump overstepped when he slapped these ever-changing duties on everything from steel to consumer goods. The cases, Trump versus VOS selections and learning resources versus Trump, are set for oral arguments in November. Why does this matter so deeply? The Constitution vests the power to tax squarely with Congress, not the president. It's a bedrock principle dating back to the Founding Fathers, who feared exactly this kind of executive overreach after watching kings drain treasuries at whim. Taxes aren't just numbers. They're the lifeblood of government, funding everything from roads to defense. Trump's team argues he's acting under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, a law meant for genuine crises like wars or pandemics. It lets the president regulate foreign-linked property to counter unusual and extraordinary threats. But judges have shot that down, saying tariffs aren't regulation, they're straight-up taxes. And where's the emergency? Trump's declarations have been vague, more political theater than dire necessity. Yale's budget lab crunches the numbers. These tariffs could generate $2.4 trillion from 2026 to 2035 if upheld. That's transformative, potentially boosting domestic manufacturing, hitting back at trade rivals like China. But it comes at a cost: higher prices for everyday Americans, from cars to electronics. And legally, this flies in the face of the major questions doctrine, a tool the Supreme Court itself wielded against Biden's policies on climate and student loans. That doctrine demands clear congressional authorization for big economic moves. If the Republican majority court applies it here, Trump loses. But will they? Past rulings show deference to his administration, raising eyebrows about consistency. It's a high-stakes gamble. Uphold the tariffs and the president becomes a one-man tax authority. Reject them, and it's a check on executive power. We'll circle back to the bigger picture soon, but first, hold on. Because the second case takes impoundment to a whole new level of controversy. Impoundment. It's a fancy word for the president refusing to spend money Congress has already approved. Sounds minor? Think again. In Department of State versus AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition, currently on the court's shadow docket, where decisions often drop without explanation, Trump's withholding about $4 billion in foreign aid. This isn't pocket change. It's funding for global health initiatives, including HIV research. The case stems from a law mandating that cash be committed by September 30th. Trump waited until the clock was ticking, less than 45 days out, to invoke the Impoundment Control Act, asking Congress to rescind the spending. Historically, this was settled law. Back in 1969, a young William Rehnquist, later Chief Justice, wrote a memo calling impoundment extremely difficult to justify constitutionally. Presidents can't just veto spending line by line. That's Congress's job. Even some current justices have voiced doubts. Yet last week, Chief Justice John Roberts issued a temporary order letting Trump freeze those funds while the court deliberates. Ominous? Absolutely. Trump's loophole? He claims the 45-day review period pauses the spending deadline, letting it expire on its own. But plaintiffs argue he botched the process, submitting the request to the House on August 28th but not the Senate until September 8th, violating the law's same-day rule. Dig deeper. The Impoundment Control Act was born from Nixon-era abuses, when presidents played games with budgets to push agendas. It explicitly allows lawsuits like this one, debunking Trump's claim that only the Comptroller General can sue. If the court buys his argument, presidents could routinely delay or kill programs, foreign aid today, domestic ones tomorrow. Imagine, no more mandatory funding for education, environmental protection, or disaster relief unless the White House greenlights it. That's not leadership. It's unilateral repeal of laws. Neutral observers worry this erodes Congress's purse strings, tilting power toward the executive. Supporters see it as fiscal discipline in a bloated budget era. The shadow docket secrecy adds intrigue. Will we get a full explanation, or just a quiet green light? As we pivot to the third case, remember, these aren't isolated fights. They're threads in a tapestry of control. Now the Federal Reserve, the economy's quiet guardian. Trump versus Cook could land at the Supreme Court any day now, after a federal appeals court just blocked Trump's bid to fire Board Governor Lisa Cook. By statute, Fed governors serve 14-year terms, removable only for cause. Think misconduct, not policy disagreements. Trump alleges Cook committed mortgage fraud by listing 2 properties as her primary residence, but Reuters fact-checks that. One was declared a vacation home, with the lender fully aware. No fraud, just a stretch. Why protect the Fed? Congress insulated it to prevent political meddling. Presidents might juice the economy pre-election, lowering rates for a boom, damn the long-term inflation. Nixon did it in '72, sparking the '70s stagflation nightmare. High prices, stagnant growth, everyday Americans squeezed. The Fed's independence ensures decisions based on data, not polls. Just last May, the Supreme Court reaffirmed this in a ruling expanding presidential firing powers elsewhere, but sparing the Fed. If they reverse now, it's a credibility killer. Trump could install loyalists, turning the central bank into a campaign tool. Catastrophic? History says yes. Short-term wins, long-term pain like recessions or bubbles bursting. So why is Trump pushing so hard? His vision, a streamlined executive tackling threats, trade wars, wasteful spending, economic rivals, without gridlock. Critics see tyranny, a president taxing trillions via decree, impounding funds to gut programs, commandeering the Fed for political gain. The Constitution's Appropriations Clause blocks unauthorized spending, but Trump's immunity from Trump versus United States 2024 lets him pardon violators of the Anti-Deficiency Act. It's a workaround that could make him fiscal dictator. This Republican supermajority court has shown deference, shadow orders, major questions applied selectively, yet they've checked executives before. The risk? If they grant these powers, checks and balances crumble. No more Congress as the people's voice on money, just one man's say-so. For everyday Americans, it means uncertainty. Will your taxes skyrocket? Programs vanish? The economy manipulated? We've analyzed the why. The historical fears of overreach, the legal loopholes, the economic fallout. It's deep, it's real, and it's unfolding now. As we wrap, one question lingers. Will the court safeguard the republic or bend to the moment? Stay tuned to Libo News for updates. This story's just heating up. Thanks for watching. Hit like if this shook you, subscribe for more unfiltered analysis. Good night.